Welcome to Fabulous Women Over 40, hosted by celebrity stylist Kara Allan. Join Kara as she interviews amazing women, sometimes younger and amazing men as well, in their 40s and beyond. Here's Kara with our Fabulous Woman of the Day.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Fabulous Women Over 40 podcast. I'm your host, Kara Allan. This podcast is dedicated to celebrating the incredible women and men who are over 40, who are redefining what it means to be fabulous at any age. For more than 23 years as a personal stylist and luxury lifestyle strategist, I've guided men and women in unlocking confidence, mastering their personal style, and showing up in the world with presence, polish, and purpose. Today's guest is the incredible Tami Stackelhouse, a fibromyalgia wellness expert, bestselling author, and the host of the top-rated Fibromyalgia Podcast. After being diagnosed in 2007 and facing years of debilitating symptoms, Tami transformed her life using what later became her Fibromyalgia Wellness Framework, a system that helped her achieve full remission and reclaim her life. She since has dedicated her career to helping others do the same through her coaching programs, books, global podcasts, and her work as executive producer of the groundbreaking documentary Invisible. Tami has empowered hundreds of thousands of patients around the world to find hope, clarity, and real relief. I'm so honored to welcome her today. Please help me greet the phenomenal Tami Stackelhouse.
Thanks so much for having me.
So glad to have you today. We had a lot of scheduling conflicts, so I'm glad that we were able to get through it.
Yes.
Yes. So, fibromyalgia. Tell us about that. And how has it been, your journey? Like, how were you diagnosed and how old were you and all those things?
Yes. So if people aren't familiar, fibromyalgia is a chronic pain condition. The four main symptoms, there can be others, but the four main symptoms are brain fog, poor sleep, fatigue, and widespread body pain. And the thing that is a little bit unique about fibro pain is that it moves around. So you might have one body part hurt one day and then something else hurts the next day. And it's all how your brain and your nervous system is processing the input. So there's no actual damage, right? You look at an x-ray, everything looks fine. You look at an MRI, everything looks fine. So yeah, it can be a tricky thing to track down. So as far as my story goes, I had actually been looking for answers for a really long time. And fibromyalgia, we can go back 200 years and see descriptions of it in literature, but we only had diagnostic criteria for diagnosing fibromyalgia in 1990. So it's relatively it's old, but it's new.
Right.
Right. So a lot of the years that I was looking for answers, it just wasn't really on people's radar, and finally after I got married, I switched insurance and switched doctors, a bunch of other things all happened. And that's when I finally got my diagnosis. So I was 35. Wow. 36 when I got diagnosed, which is relatively young. In general for fibromyalgia, you're generally diagnosed older, although anyone, any age can have fibromyalgia. I've seen kids with fibromyalgia. It's just not as common. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning, getting that diagnosis. And, I remember crying all the way home from the doctor after I got my diagnosis, not because I got the diagnosis this is a bad thing, but because I was just so thankful that I finally had somebody that knew what to do with me.
Yeah.
Right.
So how old were you when you first started having symptoms?
Oh, Lord, I can go back and I can see things actually in my childhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just to give you a couple examples, the idea of growing pains, that is something that is more likely to have been fibromyalgia than actual growing pains. Everybody grows. It shouldn't hurt, right? So, yeah. And then things like going out to play on recess and feeling like I had less energy than everybody else, right? Always having this thought of, oh gosh, I'm just not in shape. I just need to, whatever. And I think those kinds of things were actually related to my fibromyalgia.
So were you in elementary or middle school or high school at that point?
All of the above, yes.
Wow.
So like going out and playing on recess and feeling like I was more tired than everybody else, I can kind of remember that in elementary school. When I was in high school, I was diagnosed with chronic headaches and migraines. And I think that was also part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. And then to not, as
No answers.
yeah, no, what the heck is happening? I
Right.
can't imagine, like, wow. And so 35, you get the diagnosis. And then, so what was their pain plan for you at that time?
Yes. So I left her office with, I don't know, 3 or 4 different prescriptions to go get filled and a list of supplements to go buy. So, it was things like magnesium and vitamin D and, typical things like that. But
Right.
then also several medications, not all like pain meds, but other medications to treat the fibromyalgia, to help with sleep, right? Just kind of working with all of the things that were showing up, right? So I had those, and the first year or two, honestly, I just felt like I was treading water, right? Like I wasn't getting worse, but I also wasn't getting better either, right? And so I just felt like I was in this limbo, this holding place, like I said, treading water, like not really going anywhere. And after a couple of years of that, I just had this moment, like you do sometimes, where you just sort of have this vision of where life is going. And I was like, oh no, we're not doing that. And so I made an appointment with my doctor and we talked through some things. I'm like, what can we do? What else can we do? Because this isn't enough. And that's actually when she introduced me to a health coach who was in her office. And that really changed a ton for me, because a lot of the stuff that we all know we should do, right? But we just have trouble doing it. The coach, was able to help me just sort of, okay, now how am I going to do those things, right? How am I going to shift my habits? How am I going to change my thinking? How am I going to change what it is that I do when I go to bed, what I eat, all of these things? It's like, yes, I know those are good things to do, but the practical aspect of like living that out in my life,
not so much.
Right. Yeah. And I think we all can relate to that, right? I think we've all been there.
And especially in your early 30s. I mean, I don't think unless you're maybe an athlete or somebody who lived around somebody who was very healthy and that was part of your lifestyle, it's kind of hard to implement or even think. I mean, what year was this when you got diagnosed?
Early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back to the 2000s for myself. I just had my 3rd kid, but I never ate bad per se, but I was still eating things I probably shouldn't, you know what I mean? I was 27 at the time, and at 30, my metabolism went, and it was like, okay, like all that junk you've been doing for years is not working anymore.
Yes.
So it was kind of rough, but I wasn't on that, and I just at 30, I started working out more and things like that. So I wasn't in that mindset. So I can imagine like going like, huh? And I'm in chronic pain and I don't know what to do with this. Like,
yes.
and that's
that's the other part of it, right? Like being so fatigued, being in so much pain, you slowly sort of like recalibrate your life in not a good way, where it's like, okay, now I'm eating more convenience foods because I don't have as much energy for cooking, or maybe I'm doing more fast food because I don't even have enough energy to go grocery shopping. Right. And so these little changes over time, you start moving less, right? Because you're so exhausted and you're in pain. And after that's happened and you get to this place where you're just like not moving as much, not eating as well, it really it feels like a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
right? To get from here to even like normal.
Yeah.
No, forget, actually making some improvements, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And you'd had it for so long. What is normal at this point?
r-
I don't even know
Totally.
what that
Yeah.
is.
Yes. Yes. I
That's
remember my coach asking me at one point, like we coaches do, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I just started laughing. I'm like, 5 years? I don't even know how I'm going to feel in 5 days.
that's the
How
most
can I make
benign
5 year
question.
plans?
Yeah, I mean, even in job interviews, that's the most benign question. Like, who knows? I mean, nobody's that structured yet, really.
Right. Right.
And it sounds good to say, yeah, I think I'll be working here and da 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 or whatever, but it's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So then, what did she? So how was it working with her that was different from, say, like a doctor? Like, how did she? If you're in pain all the time, if you're tired all the time, if you got all of this stuff going on, like where do you start as to like a plan to feel better, a plan to
Yeah.
move more, a plan to eat better? Like how does that even work?
Yes, good question. Good question. So, for me, in working with my coach, there had been a lot of things that my doctor had been telling me over the years, like, you know, improving my sleep routine, for
Hmm.
instance, right? Got to go to bed at kind of the same time, get up about the same time, like do
Right.
these things, get better sleep, right?
If you can sleep, right?
Right. And it just felt like this like, okay, you're saying words to me, but they don't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it doesn't compute. How do I do this? And
No.
so actually having my coach to be like, okay, how am I going to do this?
Hmm.
My doctor wants me to do this thing. My doctor wants me to try going gluten free. But how do I actually do this? What does this look like in my real life?
Hmm.
And then when I would, I'd go through the week and then fail, right?
Yeah.
I'd not do it. I had somebody then to be like, okay, well, what happened? What went wrong?
Hmm.
Was it I didn't have the systems and the structures in place to support my plan?
Right.
Was it, something better came up? I'm
Yeah.
not going to bed because this is way more fun.
Yeah.
I mean, having that person to strategize with and really think about, is this, is this something that I need to actually change, or is this just life happened, right? Because it happens
Yeah.
to all of us.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was a big difference, that having a person to strategize with
Right.
and to walk through things, think through things.
Hmm.
A lot of managing fibromyalgia is good planning. And we can talk a little bit about that if you want. But
Hmm.
but the thing for me is, and I do this with my clients, looking at the week ahead and thinking, okay, with the things that are coming up, what do I need to do to feel my best?
Yeah.
Right? Do I need to take an extra nap? Do I need to make sure I'm taking snacks with me? Do I actually need to take something out of my schedule? Is
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
actually too much?
Yeah.
Right? And just sort of doing that planning and having somebody else to talk that through with. Now,
Right.
my coach didn't have fibromyalgia. She actually didn't know anything about fibromyalgia. But especially now, if you work with somebody who does know, whether that's me or one of my coaches, we've got all of our own tips and tricks and history, and
Hmm.
hey, have you ever thought about doing it this way? you
Right.
know
Interesting. So, yeah, I know we talked a little bit earlier about, so my dad was diagnosed back when it wasn't a thing. Like had,
yeah.
and it was actually the same doctor that he originally had gone to that gave him the diagnosis like 10 years later. And the guy apologized for,
Making him
dismissing,
wait 10 years for a
yeah, and
diagnosis.
kind of dismissing the pain. Cause like if you can't, and again, if something hadn't existed before, it's kind of hard for anybody to figure it out. But I guess that's whatever. But so he just, I don't know, and then so he was like, acknowledged finally. But then he's on some medications, but then for him, a lot of the times get up and go depends on like how cold is it outside. He thrives better in warm climates. He had
Yep.
considered moving to like Arizona or somewhere where it was warmer all the time, just never did it. And he's 80 now, so I think he was maybe 60 when he was diagnosed finally, something like that, and had it for since he was 50. So
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
somebody like that, like I don't know what his pain plan is or whatever. I just know that he just when he's out of it, he's out of it, and he can't really do anything. He has a little sauna in the basement that he'll go and
Mm.
sit in, and that seems to help him. But he doesn't really work out or walk or do anything, other than that. So, like, what would you tell somebody like that? Somebody who had it like you when nobody knew what it was, and now that like, what do you? And then trying to get them to do it, like
Right. That's the whole other thing.
because he's set in his ways about stuff, and there's certain things he's just like, yeah, it sounds good, but I'm not gonna do that. What do you do?
Right.
How do you help somebody like that?
Yeah. It's we really have to meet people where they are, right?
Yeah.
What I my the way I help and my advice to somebody who's 80 versus somebody who might be 23
Hmm.
is going to be very different, right?
Right.
Just in what your life looks like,
Yeah.
right? And I think there is a time and a place for certain kinds of changes. So, for instance, just, exercise. There is lots of research that shows that exercise can be helpful,
Hmm.
but it also can be harmful. Like
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
actually see both.
If you do
And
too
so
much.
how do you know if it's the right time for you? And
Yeah.
so one of the things I do with my clients is we have a long conversation about a lot of this stuff, right? Like, how much energy do you have to get through your day? If
Mm.
you don't have the energy you need to do your functioning, then
Hmm.
we probably shouldn't be going out and spending extra energy.
Right.
Right. So maybe we need to wait a little bit on the exercise part of things. Right.
Hmm.
We also need to, like I said, meet people where they're at in terms of what they're ready to work on.
Yeah.
I had a client, I just love this question. She was trying to decide if she wanted to work with me. And one of her questions was, so if I work with you, do I have to give up coffee and chocolate? And I just love that question because to me, it says so much,
Yeah.
right? There are so many things we've had to give up because of our fibromyalgia. So many things we enjoy,
Yeah.
right? Hobbies, careers. Sometimes we lose friends and family. Like it's hard.
Yeah.
And so part of that question is, these are some of the last few things that bring me joy. Do I have to give them up? Right. But it also speaks to, maybe I'm not ready to address that.
Mm.
And so, working with our clients to figure out, okay, what feels doable, what's something you want to work on,
Hmm.
and also like just how much is this impacting your life? I was talking with one of my students a while back about one of her clients who was like, I actually think my life is okay.
Mm.
Well, she had a very supportive husband who did a lot of things for her. Like, if we were just to look at that patient, she was extremely symptomatic. And like, I wouldn't have wanted to have that level of symptoms.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to work on it. But for her, it was like, my life is working. Right.
Mostly
So,
because she had somebody helping her. Because if you had to do it
absolutely.
yourself, then
Absolutely.
it wouldn't work.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, to your question, what would I do with somebody like that? It really kind of depends, on where they're at. And really, we change when staying the same is more uncomfortable than the change, right?
Right.
So, if you're comfortable and your life is working, maybe there's nothing to do.
That's true. It kind of reminds me of a joke I heard somebody say, like, this guy was walking past a porch and there was a dog howling on the porch, and the farmer was sitting out there with the dog, and he's like, "What's wrong with the dog?" He's like, his paws on a nail, and he's like, "Well, why doesn't he move it or take it up?" And he's like, "I don't know. I guess it don't hurt that bad." It's like, okay.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And I also think we need to be careful about how we treat people who are in that situation.
Yeah.
Like you're not ready until you're ready. And
Yeah.
if you're not ready, there's no shame in that.
No.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
We can only do what we can do. And
Yeah. And we all have levels of that, whatever it is,
yeah.
weight loss or not drinking so much or too much
Oh, yeah.
chocolate or
Keeping your house clean, praying, whatever it is,
yeah,
right? Like we
everybody
all have those things.
it is.
And sometimes we're just not ready.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people like him, my dad had been in that situation so long, you're just so used to dealing with the pain. It's almost like, and all the other things you had tried didn't work. So you're just like, meh, I'm, I don't even believe anything could be different. So why am
Yeah.
I going to get my hopes up and then do it and it still doesn't work? And then it's like, meh, I'm still in the same place. It could be that too. That's a
Absolutely.
lot.
And I see that a lot with people who were diagnosed a while back. So people
Mhm.
like your dad who were diagnosed, 20 years ago. I do see that a lot, largely because at that time, we didn't have we didn't know what we know now. We didn't
Yeah.
have the medications that we have now. We didn't have the research that we have now. And so a lot of people who may have been diagnosed, early 2000s and earlier
Mhm.
were told by their doctors, there's not a lot we can do about this. So,
Yeah.
do your best, basically, right?
So
And we know a lot more now. We know
yeah.
a lot more now. And fibromyalgia can be very, very treatable.
Mm.
Our doctors just don't know
Yeah.
because the cycle of when we learn things and how long it takes to actually show up in the doctor's office,
Mm.
right? In your everyday, your primary care, like that is decades.
Yeah.
20, 30 years for that to actually show up. So what we know now is going to take a long time before it's like common practice. So
Mm.
you really do need to find someone who is more of a specialist who
Mhm.
really knows this stuff.
So where does it come from? Like, is it onset from an accident or from an injury or like where does it actually? What's the root of it?
Yes, great question. So I personally think that this is twofold. We haven't like tracked down all of this, so we don't have like a definitive scientific medical answer. So this is Tammy's answer.
Mm.
But I think there's really two pieces. One is genetics. We know that you are 8 times more likely to develop fibromyalgia if you have a first degree relative. So
Mm.
you have a much higher chance because your dad has fibromyalgia, right?
Mm.
But genetics are really just like the potential for
Right.
something. It's
Not the
not
symptoms.
necessarily a guarantee.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's
I'm not cursing you with fibromyalgia or
no,
anything like
please,
that.
thank you. No.
So you've got your genetics, which is the possibility.
Right.
And then I think for most people with fibromyalgia, there is some kind of trauma that is a trigger. So it could be an accident, like a
Mm.
car
Mhm.
accident or a
Mhm.
work accident. It could be an illness, right? So a lot of people got COVID, ended up like a third of the people with long COVID also developed fibromyalgia. It's a lot.
Wow.
So, an illness that you just kind of never get over, right? For
Yeah.
some people, it's even things like childbirth, right?
Mm.
It could also be what we usually think of with trauma, the mental, emotional parts of trauma, whether that's abuse or going through a traumatic experience. Or in my case, I believe my trigger where I really fully developed the symptoms was after 9 years of working at a very stressful job. I
Mm.
managed the call center for a software company.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So it was a lot. So
Yeah.
those two things together, right? The potential in your genetics and then that trauma trigger that actually kicks things into gear.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Is it also in a sense like inflammation is a big thing of why people are in pain a lot, whatever that might be from, like,
Mhm.
eating certain things that is messing with them, or again, like long-term stress or an injury or something like that. It
Yeah.
kind of feels like it's similar, and maybe it's all in the same bag. I don't know. But I know when I had some surgery on my legs, I had this constant like pain afterward, and I didn't know what, and the doctor couldn't tell me anything, and didn't, but it wasn't until I started this year actually changing some things after I went to a functional medicine doctor that I have seen a lot of relief from that. And there was a lot of things that I switched after talking to him. And it's like, man, it can come from anything. You don't even, necessarily know. That's
Right,
weird.
right. And the other tricky part of all of that is what causes inflammation in you may or may not be the same thing that causes inflammation in me,
Exactly.
because we do have things like our own individual sensitivities or genetics again, right? And so there isn't a one size fits all, do this, 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 and then
Yeah,
this, and
true.
you're cured,
Yeah.
right? There is a lot of trial and error, which is why I talk about what I do as a framework rather than like a method or a process,
Right.
because everybody needs, like, there's certain things everybody needs. You need to make sure you have good sleep. We need to have adequate pain management. We need to, have the way we think and talk to ourselves needs to be nicer, right? Self-care, all of these things everyone needs. But some people are good at certain parts and bad at others, right?
True. Nobody's
So,
perfect at all of it.
no.
Well, and one thing you did mention that kind of triggered a thought too about I've often thought or heard other doctors or practitioners, anybody say that sometimes emotional pain can trigger physical pain. Whether
Yes.
that's, like you said, trauma from childhood or relationship trauma or work trauma or whatever. So then how do you diagnose that when the person's having a physical issue and then they don't realize that maybe some emotional thinking or trauma, repeated trauma obviously, may have triggered this physical pain, like the physical pain is showing up because of that emotional stuff that's going
Yes, and they feed together too,
on. Yeah.
right? Like it's not clear cut at all.
No.
So when I'm working with my clients, obviously people are coming to me because they have fibromyalgia, which means they have that physical pain. So for me, that's the given.
Right.
And we start tracking down anything else that could be contributing to that pain. Fibromyalgia is like an amplifier. So if you've got a bad knee, fibro is going to take that, make it worse, and make everything else hurt too. Right. So sometimes we have to track down other sources of pain, whether that's getting that bad knee addressed or the emotional part of it, right? All those other things need to be tracked down and addressed as well, so that fibromyalgia isn't cranking up the volume on it. And, so if you take just any ordinary pain, right? You walk down the hall, you stub your toe. All right. Not fibromyalgia, not even part of this equation. So you stub your toe. Now, there's a certain amount of pain that is because you stubbed your toe, right? That freaking hurts.
Yeah.
But then we can add to that load of pain by all the stuff, all the drama, I call it, that we pile on top of it. Yes. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have been hurrying. Oh, I'm so stupid. My house was cleaner. That wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have stubbed my toe. Right. So all of that actually makes our pain worse. So I've heard it described a lot of different ways. The clean pain being the actual stubbing your toe pain, and then the dirty pain of all the emotional stuff added onto it, or I call it the pain and the drama. But there's a lot of different ways you can think about it. But how we think about our bodies, how we think about our pain, how we live that out does impact the actual pain number on a pain scale, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to look at all of it.
Yeah, it's a whole bag of tricks, let's just say.
It is.
Because the body's so intricate and everything just works, goes all together. Like my massage therapist was telling me when I said, I have some pain back here on my leg. She said, well, that's probably because in your hip it's here or your knee's doing this. I'm like, Jesus. I just wanted to stop. But to figure out how it's all like interconnected and why one pressure point here can cause something else to, have a scream from it is like, wow, man, that's serious. It's all a bunch of little Bob the Builders in there, going on, figuring out what to attack first. And then you think it's one
Yeah,
thing and it ends up being something else. So,
exactly. Sometimes the bit that hurts is not actually where the problem is,
exactly. That's
right?
what I found out a lot. It's kind of crazy. So, what makes your approach different from like medical treatments or pain management strategies?
Yeah, so I do not replace a doctor. You will still need your doctor.
Mhm.
I don't diagnose. I can't prescribe. I can't, run tests for you, diagnostics. So you definitely still need your doctor on the team for that.
Mhm.
But as we were talking about earlier, a lot of doctors don't know how to treat fibromyalgia effectively or efficiently.
Right.
A sad statistic that I ran across a couple months ago is that here in the US, it's only about 9 hours of classroom hours of education that our doctors get on pain management. That's
Mm.
not 9 hours of fibromyalgia. That's not even 9 hours of chronic pain. That is total 9 hours of pain management. Just let me just throw out there, when my coaches graduate, they have over 370 hours of training just on fibromyalgia.
Wow.
Right. So there is a very different level of knowledge. And we are, like I said, we're not there to replace your doctor, but we are there to fill that gap of knowledge.
Mhm.
So we can say things like, hey, 45% of people with fibromyalgia also have sleep apnea as compared to like less than 10% in the
Interesting.
normal population. So
Mhm.
you really should talk to your doctor about having a sleep study. Their
Yeah.
doctor isn't going to think about it because it's like, 3 to 5% in
Yeah.
a normal person, but 45%, that's a different number, right? So we can fill in those gaps of knowledge. We also, walk with our clients through their lives, right? Like my
Mhm.
coach did for me. Okay, so you weren't able to go to bed on time last night. Let's talk about that. What happened? How do we
Yeah.
make that easier for you? Is that even still a goal? Right? We talk through all of that. And then the other piece of that is we all have fibromyalgia too. So we are sharing those tips and tricks and, experiences from our own lives. And for a lot of people I talk to, I'm the first person that they are talking to that actually has fibromyalgia,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
this
A lot of
isn't
their
something
doctors
that,
don't.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, like I said, we're there to fill that knowledge gap. We're there to
Mhm.
provide that support, the accountability, the walking through your life day to day. And, I think the average doctor's appointment is something like 7 to 12 minutes. Like it's ridiculously short.
Yeah.
And even if you're seeing a functional medicine doctor like you do, like I do, those are longer appointments, but you're still not meeting with your doctor every single week. And that's usually what we do with our clients. We usually meet 45 minutes to an hour, basically every week. And that gives us a lot better insight into what's actually happening for you
Mhm.
and ways that we can tweak how you're living out your life.
So, and you said now you've been in remission for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So how could somebody get to that point? I mean, that's obviously something to look forward to. So, like, I
Yes.
mean, how did you get there?
Yeah. So the first thing to keep in mind is that I was diagnosed in 2007. So
Mm.
even being in remission for 10 years, you can do the math there. And there's still like, it took me, I didn't just like, it wasn't 6 months. It wasn't even six
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah.
It took time.
Mhm.
And so just for me, it was a matter of tracking down every little thing. My sort of philosophy for my own journey was, if all the pieces work as well as possible, the whole is going to work as well as possible. So
Mm-mm.
I tracked down things like, how is my thyroid functioning? How are my adrenals functioning? Do I have any food allergies? Are there any nutritional deficiencies? What's going on with the chemical soup in my brain?
Mhm.
Right? All of these things that really aren't fibromyalgia, but they are, because, like you were saying, the ankle bone's connected to the neck bone. Right? Like it's all connected.
Yeah.
So, tracking down all of those little things. And, also then, so there's the physical, medical, like body part of things, right? But then
Right.
also changing how I think, how I approach life, how I think about my illness, the planning that we were talking about,
Right.
and just learning, if I do this, this happens. If I do this, I get better. If I do this, I get worse. Doing more of what helps me feel better, less of what makes me feel worse. And then, of course, shifting all those lifestyle habits, my nighttime routine, how I eat, all of that stuff. But the other part of that equation is that healing takes time.
Mm.
Right? It doesn't matter if we're talking fibromyalgia, or we're talking emotional healing, or we're talking about you broke your leg and now we're waiting for the bones to heal.
Right.
It doesn't always go like tick, 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 done. Right? So we have to give our bodies the time and the space to heal how they heal, however long it takes them to heal, and just kind of keep working at it. One of the things that I say over and over again is that I really believe everyone can feel better than you feel today. Just like a little bit better, right? Even you, even me, anyone listening, you can feel better than you do right now. We just need to keep working at it, right? Every little bit. And it's, so for me, some of the biggies that I had to work on, I talked about getting a sleep study. So I had my sleep study done, discovered I was waking up 45 times an hour. That is once every 80 seconds.
That is
When you
hard.
do the math.
Yeah.
No wonder I was tired, right? So getting that diagnosed, getting that treated, I discovered I have autoimmune thyroid. So I have Hashimoto's, dealing with that, getting that addressed, healing my adrenals. I discovered some things with my genetics where I don't make serotonin quite like I should. So supplementing with those kinds of things, the amino acids, the chemical soup that our brain lives in, right? All of those things were a part of the puzzle for me. And I can't say that I just did one thing and magically, here I am in remission today. But yeah. It does take us longer. But I think that it is absolutely possible for most people. Maybe not to be totally pain-free, because sometimes we have other things going on, right? If somebody has degenerative disc disease, for instance, right, we can't regenerate the disc. So there's probably always going to be some pain, but that doesn't mean we can't address the fibro part of it and just have it be, not have it be amplified, not have all the other issues that go with it.
So are there any misconceptions about fibromyalgia that you think that people have, and you want to clear those up for us?
Yes. So one of the biggies we've actually talked about without talking about it, and that is, a lot of people think that fibromyalgia is a woman's illness, a middle-aged woman's illness, and it is not. I personally believe that it's probably about equal, men and women who have fibromyalgia. It's just that guys don't go to the doctor, right? My husband told me the other day that he could barely lift his shoulder. I'm like, what the heck? I would have gone to the doctor so long ago.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, whatever, So I think that plays into why it's not really seen as a men's illness, but it is. I know several men who've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It is absolutely possible. So that's one. Another thing is that for, centuries, literally for centuries, fibromyalgia was seen as a hysterical woman's illness, that it was psychosomatic, right? That it was a mental illness. You're making yourself sick. No, There are real things that are going wrong in your body and that need to be addressed and corrected. And it's not just you making it up. So if anyone's listening who has been holding on to that thought, no, fibromyalgia is not a made up illness. It's a real thing. We've got real science.
Yeah. Isn't there like another term for that where people say, oh God, what was it? That like people make, like you said, make themselves sick, but there's actual term for it. I
A
can't remember.
hypochondriac? Is
Something
that
like
what you're
that.
thinking?
And then
Yeah.
there's another one because I remember that it was a big topic on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Somebody was saying that somebody was like making up stuff about what. I was just like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And, there are people out there who do that. But the most people who are suffering with fibromyalgia, it really is suffering.
Yeah.
And, the majority of us by far are, really dealing with these things, even if you can't see it. Even if I look and act totally fine one day, the next day I could be bedridden.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is the way that fibromyalgia works. And so, just because you can't see it, you can't put your finger on it, you can't see it on an x-ray, it doesn't show up on labs, we don't have a definitive lab test for this. That doesn't mean it's not real.
It's almost like a ghost.
It is. Yes. I never thought about it like that, but yes, it
Like
is.
like a kind of not a spirit, but like a ghost because it's there and it's not there. And you're like,
Right. And then
I'm
it's
hearing
here and then it's
something,
there. And then
I'm seeing something, but I don't know. Is
yeah.
it there? Is it really there? Oh God.
Yeah, and medical gaslighting is a thing, right? And so after we are told often enough that, oh, you're fine, we start to doubt ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Am I making this up? No,
I
it's
would
real.
think. So what advice on that note do you have for people who aren't feeling heard by their doctors or practitioners or, family?
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. So one of the first things I would say is go check out the Fibromyalgia podcast. I actually just in the last couple of weeks have done a couple episodes on this. So some tips for how to, talk to your family if they don't see it or believe it. Obviously, ultimately we cannot make people believe something they don't want to believe. So sometimes the answer is that you've got to just not go there, right? Like you talk to other people about your fibromyalgia, but maybe you just don't talk to Aunt Shirley or whoever it is, right? So yeah, go check out the Fibromyalgia podcast. There's a lot of really practical stuff in there. Sometimes with our providers, we do need to find new ones.
Yeah.
I really believe that we need to be treating our doctors a little bit more like we do restaurants, right? If you go to a restaurant and you've got a bad experience, right? You're posting a review, you're telling all your friends, don't go there. But we go to the doctor and we have a bad experience and we just come back.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to be a little bit more empowered and do that. The other thing is there is a very, very good chance that the providers that you're seeing just don't have the knowledge to be able to help you the way that you need to be helped. And so you may need to add somebody to your team, like a certified fibromyalgia coach, or do your own research, educate yourself so that you can advocate for yourself. But I would not expect your doctors to know what they need to know. I would expect them not to know what they need to know to help you feel better because it's not taught in medical school, right? 9 hours total of pain management training, right? Like they're not going to have what you need. Occasionally you'll find one and awesome. But I would go with the assumption that they actually don't. And, of course, be careful about how you approach that with your providers. But I do think that it is the responsibility is on us as patients to either educate ourselves or add somebody to our healthcare team that can be that source of knowledge for what you need to feel better.
Yeah, I think if you get a response that doesn't sound right or doesn't resonate right, you would just assume that they don't know. And I think it would be great if more doctors would just say, I'm not that knowledgeable in that area. I have somebody I could refer you to or whatever, instead of
Yeah.
just going, oh, you're fine, or I don't do that. It's not nice.
Yes. I agree so much. I have the privilege of being able to talk to some medical students a few times a year. And that's one of the big messages that I always try to get across to them. There is nothing wrong with you not knowing,
Yeah.
right? No one person can know everything,
No.
right? And think about how much our primary care doctors have to know, right? Like
Yeah.
it's an inch deep and a mile wide. They got to know a little bit about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay to have somebody else that fills in the gaps for those things.
And a lot of that, especially with them, I mean, with a lot of professions, it is learning on the job. And until you have
Oh,
the
yeah.
experience, or you had somebody in your life that suffered with it, you're just not going to know. It's not taught. It's like financial stability and education. That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
taught. So you have to figure it out or go somewhere else.
Relationships.
Yeah, all of it. Like you
Yeah.
just child raising,
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
all
Yes.
of those things. You can't assume that you're going to get it from your formal education, or that anybody is, no matter how much they're paying for their education.
That's right. That's right.
It is
And
what
I
it is.
think too that like what we should be looking for in our providers is actually less about the knowledge that they have and more about who they are as a human being, right?
Well,
Like
that
I
too.
want somebody who's going to listen to me, who's
Yeah.
going to believe what I tell them, who's
Yeah.
going to treat me like I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And be willing to learn with me. Because
Right.
if you have a doctor, I would rather you have a doctor that knows nothing about fibromyalgia and who is willing to learn, that will listen to what, I'm sharing with them through you,
Yeah.
than you having somebody that is like, oh yeah, I know all about that. Because they probably don't, right? They probably don't.
Yeah. And I think the longer somebody's been in that profession too, just like anything, they think they know everything, but if they're not open to more new information, then that's not helpful for them or the patient. And
Yeah.
you don't want to get that kind of God complex, like, oh, I know everything. It's just,
Absolutely. And at the beginning I said fibromyalgia, the diagnostic criteria was established in 1990. That's only
oh wow,
35 years ago.
yeah,
So
that's
if you've got a doctor who's been a doctor for 35, 40, 50 years, however long it might be, they really weren't taught this because
yeah,
we didn't even have diagnostic criteria established yet. The
yeah,
first medication that was developed for fibromyalgia came out in the mid 2000s.
wow,
So 20 years ago, right?
yeah,
So when doctors that have been around a while are telling you, well, there's not really that much that we can do for fibromyalgia, it's because when they learned, there wasn't much we could do.
yeah,
And it's changed since then.
yeah. But bottom line is, you have to advocate for your own health at some point too. I mean,
100%.
you go to the doctor to help, but if they are no help, then you got to help yourself.
Exactly.
Let's just say.
Exactly.
But we
Yep.
won't bash them, so it is what it is.
No. I've got lots of friends who are doctors. It's not, that you can only do what you can do, right? If they
Yeah.
haven't been taught, how can they help you, right?
Well, and two, I
So,
think it is, like you said, an openness to knowing or wanting to know, and really wanting to help. That's really the thing, more
yeah.
than anything. If the first thing you learn on your Hippocratic Oath is do no harm, sometimes the do no harm can be like being ignorant of not wanting to learn about something that's going to help your patient too. So
Yes.
let's just say that it is what it is.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about your Invisible documentary. Where can people watch it, and what do you hope that that people learn when they watch it?
Yeah, so the film was took us a lot longer to make than we thought it was going to. You'll watch my hair color change from dark brown to now I'm mostly gray. But
That's
it's
cool.
these things have a life of their own, and the film changed so much in that time. And I'm just so proud of where we ended up with it. It tells the story. Our director is also like the main character in the film. Nick, our director, his mom has fibromyalgia. And so the story that we follow in the film is Nick learning more about fibromyalgia so that he understands his mom a little bit better. And as part of that, he interviews doctors, he interviews me, he meets other people with fibromyalgia. And one of the things that I think is so great about this film is that it shows the whole spectrum of fibromyalgia. So there are people in the film like me, fibromyalgia is in remission, I'm leading a normal life. And then there's also a person in the film who is extremely disabled from her fibromyalgia. And at one point in the film, she talks about the fact that she doesn't have enough money to turn the heat on in her apartment.
Wow.
Because her medications are so expensive.
Oh, man.
And, all these things, right? So it shows that whole range. And I won't, give away the punchline of the film, but that's kind of the process. Nick is learning about fibromyalgia. And, I think the biggest thing that the film has done for us is it is a fantastic tool for helping other people understand. So watching it with friends, with family, really having people see that. And, it's one thing when we say, oh, I'm feeling like this. It's another thing to see somebody else say that.
Yeah.
Right. It just sort of adds this validity to our own experience for the people who know us. Right. So it's really, really great for that. So if you have a movie night, watch Invisible. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. So it's not hugely long, but it is feature length. You can find it on Amazon Prime. It is available to rent there. There are other places, I think Tubi, you can watch it for free. But the website is invisible-film.com. And we've got on there all the different places that you can watch it. But Amazon Prime is usually the easiest for most folks.
The main place to find it.
Yeah.
Cool. And when did it come out?
Oh gosh, when was that? 2021. Yeah, 2021. So
Okay.
it's been out a few years. It's really interesting. Fibromyalgia is something people don't want to talk about.
Really?
So Nick, I always tease Nick about this, right? He's our director. He's a filmmaker. He has another film that's out that has won all these awards, and our film Invisible, even though I think it's a fantastic film, like wasn't accepted into any oh shoot, I'm totally losing my mind here. The film festivals, that's the word I'm looking for. So it wasn't accepted into any festivals, didn't win any awards. And so I always tease Nick, see, you do know what you're doing. Your other film is getting all these awards. People just don't want to talk about fibromyalgia. His other film is about body dysmorphia and the LGBTQ community. So it's a very hot topic.
It's a huge tamale right there.
Yes. But it deserves more press. It deserves more people watching it. Like I said, I just really, when we made this, it was really just to share our stories and to give people some hope and to help people feel seen, and really understand what fibromyalgia is like on in the background, because we look fine, right?
Hence invisible.
Invisible, exactly.
And it's sort of similar to like the whole menopause situation, no one was talking about that either. And now you have more. It'll be interesting to see if they come up with a documentary or something.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because, it was something my mother never talked to me about. And when I asked her about it, when I started going through some stuff, I was like, so what did you do? Like, how was it for you? She's like, I don't remember, which means it's so bad that you blocked it out, or, or it was nothing. But either way, it's not helpful.
You didn't do anything for that.
It doesn't help me at all because I'm over here suffering, like I have nothing to go
Yes.
on because they always, especially when women start their cycles, they usually say it's within the year that your mother did. So you would think your mother had some wisdom, but no, I think it just wasn't talked about much. They just sort of glossed over it. They suffered in silence, and then once it was over, it was done, and that was it. I don't know. That's kind of what it seems like. 'Cause I don't ever remember my grandmother, either one of them, talking about it either.
No,
So
no.
what do you do? And so, and fibromyalgia is still a relatively, I won't say it's new, but it's newly diagnosed, sort of. So, like you said, nobody in 30 years ago even knew what it was, pretty much.
Oh,
So,
no, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, how can loved ones help support someone who has fibromyalgia better?
So I think starting with the film is a great place to start because it'll give you a little bit more insight into the things that we deal with. I think that's great. If you're someone who is willing to study and learn, reading some of the books about fibromyalgia, listening to the Fibromyalgia Podcast, those kinds of things can also be really helpful in helping you understand better. But I think the biggest thing, just like we were talking about with our doctors, I think the biggest thing is listening, believing,
Yeah.
like if somebody says they hurt,
Yeah.
right? Even if they could do it yesterday, if they say they can't do it today, believe them,
Yeah.
right? I think that is really the biggest gift that we can offer our loved ones is just to believe them when they say something, right?
Right.
And then not in a time where they're really, so not when they're in a pain flare, not when they're super exhausted, but in a time where they are feeling more normal. It is also really great to just have that conversation about how can I help you? Don't ask when we're in the middle of a flare because our brains don't work, our bodies don't work. I can't answer that question right now. But if you ask me at a time where I am clear, my brain is clear, I'm not totally fatigued, then we can, brainstorm some good ways for people to help. And I think a lot of it is letting people help the way that they want to help, that they are comfortable helping, right? Some people are doers, some people are sitting listeners, right? So letting people help how they want to help, but also like not all help is help. So I think we do need to have that conversation and actually talk about it. Would it be helpful if I did this? Would it be helpful if I did that? What would be helpful to you? But again, don't do that in the middle of the flare. We won't know. We can't answer. But do it when they're feeling decent. So those are, I think if you do those things, you'll be ahead of most folks.
Yeah. Yeah. Asking usually helps better than telling, I think. Right.
For sure.
So where can everyone listen to your podcast?
Yeah, so the Fibromyalgia Podcast is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. So whatever your favorite podcast app, however you're listening to this, you'll find the Fibromyalgia Podcast there as well. It's also available on my website at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. We also just started offering a written blog. Everything has kind of moved to video these days, but some of us still prefer to read. And so we just started a blog, the Fibro Compass. You'll find that at fibrocompass.com if you're a read person or if you have things you want to share. Sometimes that's an easier way to share things than here, go listen to this hour podcast. Listen, just read this article can be an easier share. So yeah, those are the best ways. And when you get to the fibromyalgiapodcast.com website, in the menu, look for resources. There are a bunch of free resources out there. You can download copies of my books for free. There is our Fibromyalgia Wellness Style Quiz. Tami's Favorite Things for 2025 just came out. So there's a lot of free goodies out there too.
And that's where if someone wanted to work with you or any of your coaches, they would go to the Fibromyalgia.
You'll find that there too. Yeah, it's all there.
Do you have anything coming up in the new year you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I do graduation twice a year for the people who graduate from my programs. And January will be our next graduation event. We call it Stories of Hope and Healing. So if you want to hear real people talk about what they really did to feel better, the graduates of our advisor class usually improve an average of about 50% in the 3-month class.
Okay.
So it's huge. So, come hear it from them. Don't hear it from me. You can come hear it from them. That's happening in January. And that's the next thing that's coming up.
Well, it's been great chatting with you. I know that there's just a lot of information that people needed to hear, and it's so great that you have all these coaches. 370 hours, like that's crazy. That's a lot, and
That is a lot.
it's very well needed though, because
Yes. Yeah.
9 hours of pain management. I don't know what that's supposed to do for somebody, but okay. I don't know
Yeah.
who came up with the benchmark, but yeah, they need to revisit that. Just saying. But I would love to chat with you again in the new year sometime to see what else you're up to. And it's been a treat.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
You're so welcome. And thank you for everybody to listening to the Fabulous Women Over 40 podcast. And we'll see you next time. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe so you won't miss our next conscious conversation with Kara and her fabulous guests. Follow Kara on social, on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Clubhouse, @Kara Allan, and connect with her on her website at karaallan.com. Also, leave a review if you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks again, and see you next time.